Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Debunk the Myth of Quiet Quitting and Cultivate Genuine Employee Engagement. My name is Rohit, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. So today we'll be discussing a few things about a popular topic since post-pandemic, quiet quitting. Now, since the pandemic, quiet quitting has become a buzzword, sparking discussions about employee engagement, motivation, and the evolving workplace landscape. Now, while some view it as a concerning trend, it also sheds light on the need for companies to foster healthier work environments that prioritizes employee well-being and satisfaction. So in today's session, we want to first debunk a few myths around the concept of quiet quitting and introduce some actionable insights and strategies to help you actively prevent and manage quiet quitting within your organization. So in today's session, we will have two speakers sharing their thoughts and insights. While they share, I'd like to encourage you to pen down your questions and send us in the chat box, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Tsin Pang, the head of consulting in Arbinger, Singapore and Malaysia, to share a different perspective in defining and identifying quiet quitting, as well as other common issues in the workplace. Tsin, the time is yours.
I nearly forgot to unmute myself. Okay, thank you, Rohit, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. I'm Zijun, and I would like to take some time to focus on debunking the myth of quiet quitting first. Okay. So, as a consultant, I often talk to people, and one of the things that I've heard in recent years is quiet quitting. When I first heard the term quiet quitting, the first word that really stood out for me was the word quitting. And automatically, I was assuming quiet quitting simply means when employees show no sign of quitting, but they just hand in their resignation offer. And this act will lead to a sudden need for recruitment and putting business continuity at risk. So people start to wonder, like, where do we find those people to replace them? How can we continue our business and so on? But as I did more research about quiet quitting, I learned that despite the name, quiet quitting doesn't actually involve quitting one's job, and it is absolutely not a new phenomenon. We have all been observing the quiet quitting behaviors and this situation for as long as we worked. But because we now use this new term, this newly framed term, reflectively, people think this is a new thing. It only came up because of the pandemic, because of different issues. But it's really not new. And most of the times, when we use the phrase quiet quitting, we are actually referring to employees who fulfill their basic job duties but don't go above and beyond. And we call those people quiet quitters. And we know someone is a quiet quitter because when we see some behaviors this person demonstrate. For example, this person meet his job requirements and complete his assigned tasks, but he doesn't take any initiative or volunteer for extra work or work over hours. Or sometimes this person may exhibit decreased enthusiasm or motivation compared to previously. And because of the behaviors, we call them quiet quitters, and we know someone is quiet quitting. But if you think about this, right, none of those behaviors is new. We have seen this all the time. So quiet quitting really isn't a new thing. So the first myth, or we call it understanding about quiet quitting, we need to clarify is this. Quiet quitting is really not a new thing. This is not new, and it doesn't necessarily involve quitting one's job. But as the phrase quiet quitting gained more popularity, it also sparked more debate. And often people questioning if quiet quitting is a real thing. And we know this is not new. People start questioning if it's real because some people say, hey, there is nothing wrong if you just do your job or if I just do my job. I don't feel it's fair if the company wants me to do more than I'm contracted to do or that I'm paid to do. And be it actual work or extra hours, this is not my responsibilities. And other people also say, well, just because I'm quiet at work, it also doesn't mean I'm a quiet quitter. It is just my style. I don't talk too much. I'm an individual contributor. I don't need to make all the noises all the time. And I'm absolutely delivering my results. So the word quitter is really not very fair on me. Okay, so those are the things that people often say when they engage in this debate about whether quiet quitting is real. And I have to say, I do agree with the opinions on the screen because people do have their lives outside of work as well. So in one conversation that I had with a organization development professional, a OD professional in the past, I said, okay, we cannot figure out what quiet quitting is. Then what if we imagine two employees and use them as examples? And I want you to tell me who you think is quietly quitting. And then she said, okay, all right, let's do that. So I said, okay, then let's imagine two employees, A and B. And when they go to work, they do exactly the same thing at work. Sorry. They do exactly the same thing at work. And this is what they do. They go to meetings. They deliver their results. Sometimes they ask for leave to take care of their families. They submit their work before the deadline. And after they finish work, they enjoy their weekends with their friends and families. Neither of them wants to work overtime and refuse to do other people's work. So this is A and B. However, if you look at the behaviors, right, they're exactly the same. The problem is those two employees sees their jobs in different ways. So let's look at them. A sees that going to work means he's just doing his job. So any additional work that is outside his job scope, he will not do it. He gets his work done and that's that. And he can go, no. And that's A. Okay. And B is same, but different. B sets very clear boundaries between work and personal life. And you will not see B work overtime or does other people's work for them. But everyone knows that they can count on B because the way B works always make it easier for other people to do their work. He's always on time, he's delivering the results, and especially he's delivering the result in a way that makes it easier for other people to do their works. So given the way A and B sees their works, it is very easy to see that when A does his work, he primarily focuses on himself. There is a self orientation to it. And as for B, not only is B focused on delivering his own results, he's also focused on the impact that he has on people around him and the work he's doing, and of course, to the larger organization. So when we present and imagine those two employees, I asked this OD professional, who do you think is quietly quitting? And then this OD professional said, well, I think it's A, it's definitely A. So I asked her why. She said, well, A is obviously disengaged. And as for B, even though B is not working overtime or doing other people's work, I feel more confident that B will deliver his results in the right way. And I think what she said is really important because quiet quitting is really not just about what you can see on the surface. If we only look at the behaviors, A and B, again, they do exactly the same thing. But if we simply observe the people, what we do and what they say in their behaviors to decide if they are quiet quitters, then we will see different problems. For example, we can potentially invite resistance from people who work quietly. They might be a little bit introvert, or they might be individual contributors who doesn't have to engage other teams very often. But all of those people, although they are quiet, they have great results and impact on the team and the people around them. The other damage we could have done is that we could even abuse the employee contract to make people work more than they should without recognition or compensation. Okay? So I thought it is important to also clarify that quiet quitting is not just a behavior problem. It has more to do with something deeper. So this is the second thing we kind of want to debunk. And as more people, again, talk about quiet quitting, right, we also understand, well, if it's more to do with how individuals affecting other people and the people they work with, then what about their impact on culture? Well, think about it. If more people are working like A, then how does that impact and affect the culture of the team or the entire organization? And then some people will say, well, if everybody is working like A, then the environment we're in is actually inviting more blindness. People work in silos, they blame each other, they escalate the problems when it rises. And then people are resistant to change or making change or even help each other. Right? The team has low morale. People show aversion to risk. But what about B? And then when people say, well, if more people are working like B, they deliver the results and they're thinking about other people, then I would say in the organization, we're inviting more awareness, we're inviting more collaboration. People will take ownership of their tasks. There is more initiative. And there is also more acceptance if we have to change anything. People will be more innovative. They have more of a can-do attitude. So you can see clearly that even when people are not doing any extra work and just to focus on what they are contracted to do, quiet quitting really happens when people are not being accountable for their responsibilities and also the impact they have on each other. Simply because responsibilities and impact, they go hand in hand, and we cannot ignore any one of them. So the last thing that we also want to debunk and clarify a little bit is this. The quiet quitting is not about doing more for free. No one should do that. We need recognition and compensation. But quiet quitting really happens when our behaviors, the way we do our works, not taking into the accountability that we have for our responsibilities, the impact we have on other people, just like me. I'm just going in to do my work. And I thought it's important for us to give quiet quitting a new definition. Okay. And the new definition, I would define quiet quitting like this. Number one, quiet quitting is more than employees just meeting their job requirements. Because at the end of the day, everyone has a contract. Okay? And that's what we need to do. There is absolutely nothing wrong with just doing that. But it has more to do with the way we're actually delivering the work. The second point is quiet quitting is a reflection of employees' emotional connection to the job. Do they find meaning? Do they find purpose? Do they find engagement? And the third point is this. Quiet quitting is about how people are seeing their roles and the level of accountabilities they feel towards their roles and their jobs. And the last point, last but not least, quiet quitting is an emotional experience that manifests in certain behaviors. And sure, when we want to identify quiet quitting in the office, we need to observe the behaviors. But one thing that we need to keep in mind is it really goes beyond behaviors. If you see any behavior sign, then maybe it's an invitation for us to ask more questions and understand a little bit more. So now that we have redefined what quiet quitting is, I would like to relook at those three problems that we saw in an earlier slide. Quitting, quiet quitting, and the name of the we call those quiet quitting people, quiet quitters. And the problem that we see on the surface are really not the real problems that we have to deal with. All of them, or every one of them, reveals problems that actually feed on each other. And when we review those problems, as you can see, a retention problem, how we can retain talents, the engagement problems, and also how people see their accountabilities, you'll find actually all those problems creates a never-ending vicious cycle. And we don't know how to stop them, and we don't know where to start first. And because of this, right, I would like to suggest all those problems, if you want to tackle them one-on-one, the likelihood is a lot of effort will be going to waste because we're not addressing the root cause. And in fact, the three problems have a very unified, a very unique same root cause, and the root cause is called mindset. Okay. So I'm not suggesting other issues don't come into play, like the systems, the policies, structures, and so on. But the root cause of the issues that we are seeing in the systems, processes, structures, and so on, are simply just manifesting the deeper problem here, which is the mindset. So I would like to take you through something, a very interesting research that is done that revealing the power of mindset. And you can see on the screen that I've listed 4 sets of mindsets here. And as a lot of people know, right, mindsets, they come into pairs. So the first pair is outward mindset and inward mindset. Second pair is a promotion mindset and prevention mindset. Third set or third pair is an open mindset versus a closed mindset. And then the last one is, a lot of people are very familiar with this, a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Now I'm going to just put the definition of those different sets of mindset in the chat box. All right, so you can see the definition of the different mindsets here. Okay, and there is a research. This research shows mindset plays a very critical role in our effort, both as individuals and as organizations, to address people-related issues. And this particular research I'm referencing is done by Dr. Ryan. And in this research that he conducted, it reviewed the effects of 4 different mindsets and how they affect some key elements that determine the level of engagement, retention, and accountability in organizations. In this research, more is reviewed. So for example, Dr. Ryan checked or researched on the feedback culture the company actually has, both from a quantitative and qualitative perspective. And also, he asked people to rate their emotional engagement level, their turnover intentions, their psychological safety, and their perception of inclusiveness in their own groups. Now, let's take a look at those data in closer pair of eyes. Okay. As you can see, for example, mindset comes in pairs. Now, I'm going to just take some examples and let's look together how they review by changing each pair of the mindset from one end to the other end. How does that affect the development and the growth of different aspects of the organization? So for example, as you can see, when people have an inward mindset, on the most left column, okay, when people have an inward mindset or prevention mindset or a closed mindset or fixed mindset, their level of trust in their managers are lower compared to people that have an outward mindset or promotion mindset or open mindset or growth mindset. And you can also see the gap between one side of the mindset to the other side of the mindset sometimes is a little bit bigger. So for example, when you have a fixed mindset compared to a growth mindset, the differences are a little bit smaller. But if you look at when people have an inward mindset versus outward mindset, the differences are larger. Okay. Another example, let's look at this one, the turnover intention. Okay. The one, the fourth column that you can see if you start from the left. For example, when people have an inward mindset or prevention mindset or closed mindset or fixed mindset, their turnover intention is higher than those who have an outward mindset and so on. Okay? And again, you can see the differences are different. So here, from this data, it's actually very easy to see this. Although different mindsets affect individual organizations differently, it is very apparent if we can just focus on helping people changing the mindset they operate from. If we just focus on that alone, without even start looking on changing systems, how can we review our processes, policies, change those big pictures, it is already inviting big improvement in many areas of organizational development. And this is a very powerful research reviewed in Dr. Ryan's research work, and he actually captured all those work in his book, Success Mindsets. If you're interested, you can read that. So I think as we debunk the myth of quiet quitting, a few key points. Number one is that it's important for us, not just about quiet quitting, but in many areas of our work, to look beyond the behaviors that we can see on the surface. And the second one is focus on a very small component that applies to both individual and organization, and see that how that will help us to improve and boost our organizational development and personal development. Okay, so now as I've finished my part to debunk the myth of quiet quitting, I'd like to hand over the stage back to Rohit.
All right, thank you so much, Sachin, for the insightful presentation. I also did not know that quiet quitting doesn't necessarily involve quitting. And I think you're right, that quiet quitting is not a behavioral problem because of different personalities and different styles. We do things quite differently.
Right. And thank you, Rohit, for the comment. And I think another thing that although we didn't cover in the presentation is this. It's not just about spouting quiet quitting, because in organizations, an even more damaging situation is when we misunderstand what quiet quitting is, yet we use this language. We use quiet quitters or quiet quitting to describe certain people and behaviors. It can be seen as labeling in many of the cases. And I know it can be quite common in a lot of the organizations, but the truth is, regardless of how much effort and investment we actually spend on well-being programs or culture initiatives, where like send people for coaching, send people to get certified as coaches, trying to create a feedback culture, and so on and so on and so on. The moment we understand a certain phenomenon as simple as quiet quitting, and we use this language as a weapon to label other people, then all the effort we're spending on other things just go to waste.
That's a very important point. So thank you for that. And of course, on an individual level, I believe if we can help people strengthen their mindset, we can help people to do their jobs in a more meaningful way that benefits the organization. So on the other hand, there are also issues that we can address from the organizational level. And I think that this is the perfect time to introduce our second speaker, Senthil, the Managing Director of Arbinger Institute Singapore and Malaysia, to share with us his valuable insights on how to cultivate genuine employee engagement. Welcome, Senthil.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Sijin, for taking us through the myths of quiet quitting. And I love what you said at the end. The most dangerous thing is now that we have a label called quiet quitting, and we are labeling people as quiet quitters, right? That is going to do more harm than good, because we are actually having this problem. As long as we work, there were always people who are not as engaged as others. But now we have a label for it, and it's very easy to weaponize that label. And all our efforts, right? Just that little label can go a long way in undermining everything we are trying to do. So I love that part, and I think the audience here, you may want to think about if the word quiet quitting, right, has it taken root in your organization, and how we can weaken that grip and reduce the weaponization of that phrase. Now, so we've got a new definition of what quiet quitting is. And what I want to now share with you is, why do people quietly quit? And one of the things is this, right? Job requirements are not clear, lack of clarity about roles, fail to consistently create meaning in their jobs, meaning people don't find the job meaningful or purposeful, a wrong understanding of accountability, and a lack of recognition. Now, these are not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the things that are, showing up in a big way for reasons why people are disengaged, and therefore, quiet quitting is happening. Now, let's push this forward. Let me just share some additional data for you. A 2021 SHRM survey found that 32% of employees reported feeling their performance goals were unclear. Gallup's 2022 State of the Global Workplace report highlights that only 8% of employees worldwide are strongly satisfied with their career development and opportunities. Work Institute's 2022 report suggests that a significant factor in employee turnover is a lack of managerial clarity. Now, here's another survey. A 2023 study found that 79% of employees feel underappreciated in work. A Gallup study of workers in 142 countries reveals in organizations an average of 30% of employees are actively engaged, 52% of employees are disengaged, and 18% of them are actively disengaged. The study also shows that the majority of the disengaged, this is a very important part, the majority of the disengaged people in the workflow are professionals born after 1989, the millennials and the Gen Z workers who are not looking for jobs, but also looking for meaning and purpose. So this is a very, very important part. Meaning and purpose is going to be a very, very critical component if you're going to create more engagement. And these words, meaning and purpose, they are rooted in relationality. That means we are all in relationship. How are we in relationship with everything and anything we are doing? Now, if everything is relational, then the premise of actually furthering, enhancing engagement has to be this principle, and that is life is in relationship. We are all connected. We are always affecting and impacting each other. Now, if this is a premise that life is in relationship and we are all relational, then just because you put two people together, it does not translate into engagement. Just because you have a shared KPI, it does not automatically translate into collaboration. And just because you have core values, it does not automatically translate into togetherness. Why, you may ask? Because at a deeper level, human beings, moment to moment, situation to situation, relation to relationship, right? They're showing up in one of two ways. Either I'm showing up making life harder for people around me, I'm totally self-focused, and in Arbinger, we call it the inward mindset. Or I'm showing up in a deeper way, making life easier for people around me. I bring an impact-focused orientation, and in Arbinger, we call it the outward mindset. So no matter what we do on the surface, like Sijin talked about earlier, at a deeper level, we are showing up in one of these two mindsets. And these two mindsets can, in an organization, how does it relate to? It shows up in the type of accountability we demonstrate. I repeat, these mindsets show up in the type of accountability we exhibit or demonstrate. Now let's look at the ways accountability links to mindset. Now let's look here. You can see that we are defining accountability in three ways. Level one, we call it level one. Here, as an individual, I see problems. And here, when I show up with level one accountability, I blame my actions or poor performance on others and on circumstances. Meaning, whenever I'm showing up with level one accountability and I'm doing my work, and if there are problems or I'm not able to achieve my goals, I'm always thinking it's all because of others and circumstances. It's never about me. So this is one way I show up at work. Now, another way I show up, we call it level two accountability. Here I see only responsibilities. Okay, boss, tell me what to do, I'll get it done. So I hold myself accountable only for my own actions and performance, even though the way I do my work, what I do, has a consequence impact on people around me. But that is not of consequence to me. As far as I'm concerned, this is my job, let me do it. Now, there is a third way of accountability that people show up with. We call it level three. And here, when we are showing up with level three, we see impact. So when my boss gives me a job to do, I'm not only determined to get that work done, but I'm absolutely mindful of the relational nature of life and work. And I'm actively pursuing and trying to understand who are the people, what are the dependencies, who are the people going to be affected by the way I do my work. I'm actively engaging them and to ensure that the work I'm doing not only is achieved, but the way I do my work also is not undermining the work of others. If at all, it's helpful to other people and the way they are doing their work. So here, when I'm level three, I hold myself accountable for my own actions and performance, and for my impact on others' actions and performance as well. Right? So we have two types of accountability, but it shows up in three ways in an organization and in the form of accountability. Now let's bring the two together. Now, here's the thing. If you think about level one, level two accountability, who am I primarily thinking about? Myself. So in Arbinger, we call it the inward mindset. And like Sijin said, whenever we are showing up like this, I invite a different culture around me. In fact, people problems in their 1,000 different manifestations are actually symptomatic of the inward mindset, where we are demonstrating level one, level two accountability. Now, look at level three accountability now. Who am I thinking about now? What am I focused on now? I'm impact focused. I'm not just thinking about myself, like Sijin said, I'm focused on everybody around me. We bring an impact orientation. This is what we call an outward mindset in Arbinger. And when we show up like this, we create a different reality. And you can see engagement, accountability, collaboration, everything starts to thrive and starts to get strengthened. So it's very critical to understand there's a strong correlation between mindset and the kind of accountability we are able to demonstrate. And what does this mean for organizations? Let's look at that now. Now, so here you will see two organizational structures, the red representing level 1, level 2, and the blue representing level 3. Now, let's say I work here I'm showing up with level 1, level 2 accountability, and my boss is Sijin, right? So she's here, and this is me. Okay. Now, if I'm showing up with level 1, level 2, right? Every time Sijin is thinking about Senthil and the work he's doing, right? What is she thinking about? She's likely thinking about, hey, Senthil going to get his job done, right? Is he going to cause problems for others? What additional work do I need to do? Can I leave him on his own? No, I better check in regularly to make sure he's not causing problems and he is delivering his goals on time. Can you see the amount of mind share that I take in Sijun, my boss, because I'm operating with level 1, level 2 accountability?
Sorry,
Right? So
I just want to add something as well. And if
Sure,
you're
please.
operating at that level, I will naturally think you are quitting.
I'm quitting, right? I'm a quiet
else
quitter.
would I have to spend so much time with you?
That's right. That's right. So here's a very, very important consequence, right? When people are quietly quitting, the level of mind share they occupy in our bosses' minds is significantly higher. And in Arbinger, we call this a level down organization. And the entire organization are these situations, people are operating below the line. To summarize what we've just shared, right? In a level down organization, leaders at all levels invest an onerous amount of effort and time to ensure their subordinates and teams get their work done and no problems are created for other teams and the organization. Everybody is operating below the line. It's a level down organization. And you can just imagine the value leakage that is happening in this kind of situation. Now, on the other hand, let's look at a level 3 organization, right? Same thing. This is my boss, Sijin. This is me, okay? And if I'm operating with level 3, now, is Sijin, my boss, worried about me? Is she concerned that I won't get my work done? Is she going to micromanage me now? It's unlikely because the level of trust that I'm going to get my work done, I'm not going to go cause problems for others, is absolutely high. So what happens is it levels up the organization and we start operating above the line. So here in a leveled up organization, time and capacity is freed up for leaders at all levels to create and pursue value adding strategies, which is their job anyway. Why? Because their subordinates are operating with level 3. They're getting their job done and no problems are created. And they're totally engaged with everything that is happening around them. So it's a huge consequence when people are showing up with the wrong mindset, when they're demonstrating with level 1, level 2 accountability. In fact, low engagement or quiet quitting, as we are now calling it, right, is simply symptomatic of people operating with level 1, level 2 accountability. Yeah. All right. Now, I'm hoping this is inviting a lot of questions and thoughts in you. And if you have any of them, do share them in the chat box so we can take them up for our discussions as I finish this presentation. So to summarize, right, if we want to, cultivate genuine engagement and weaken the grip of quiet quitting, it is very clear we need to address the root cause. And the root cause is really mindset. We need to figure out a strategy to shift people from a self-focused inward mindset where they're thinking, I do my work, I just have to do my work, to one where people are bringing an impact-focused orientation, which is the outward mindset, where I'm thinking about my work like this. I do my work in a way that is making it easier for others to do their work. We need to figure out a strategy to actually shift from the inward mindset to the outward mindset. And the question is, how do we do that? Is that a practical approach to increase strength and engagement and therefore, turn around quiet quitting? Now, it does not have to be complicated, It is, I'm not going to say by any means that it's easy, but it does not have to be complicated. Now, interestingly, right, if we take a behavioral approach to addressing engagement, it becomes a complex endeavor. But if we look at, in strengthening engagement and turning around quiet quitting from a mindset perspective, it is simpler and more doable. There's hope. We can actually do something more systematically and see rewards and impact and consequences and a positive consequence much earlier. Okay. Now, how can we do that? Right. So a few things. Now, how do we create a leveled up organization? Here are 4 ideas. We're not saying these are exhaustive, but these really are pivotal in any strategy that is about strengthening engagement, creating a leveled up organization. One is we need to redefine accountability. We need to shift to level 3 in the way people think about their jobs. Second, we cannot emphasize this more. There needs to be regular, meaningful development conversations between manager and the subordinates. Again, in many, many organizations, busyness is a great excuse why this is not happening sufficiently. The third one is clarify roles. Again, I will take you through each one of them in a short while. And the fourth one is recognition. We all know how important recognition is. Unfortunately, it is still a weak component among many leaders, many teams, and it is undermining our ability to create a leveled up organization. All right. Now, let's look at the first one. How do we redefine accountability? Actually, to redefine accountability, because it goes in tandem with mindset, we need to help people understand mindset. By providing a common language about what mindset is, it's easier to navigate issues across a team or across an organization. So what we want to do is help people understand how our mindset shapes our experiences and results. And this common understanding, both individually and collectively, goes a long way in engaging issues by addressing the root cause, really taking the issues head on, rather than, skirting, talking about it in a roundabout way and all that. By having a common language or mindset, we're able to better address, engagement issues. Now that we have a common language, what we need to do is actually help people redefine accountability. We need to establish a case for an impact-focused accountability approach. Now, what we mean by that is we need to provide a clear framework that encourages self-assessment, innovation, and to work in a more meaningful way. Now, how can we do that? Now, here's the thing. If you think about a standard way of thinking about performance, what are we measuring? And if we ask most people, they will say, well, we are measuring capability, competence, skills, aptitude, and we are also measuring whether people are showing up with the right results. But here's the thing. Remember, we are relational, right? Life is in relationship, and organization is a relational being. So if you keep that in mind, there is a missing component with the standard approach to measuring performance. And that is we are not thinking about people around us. The people that we need to work with, our customers, peers, subordinates, and our bosses. So how can I measure my performance with an outward mindset? Well, I need to start paying attention to impact. I need to start redefining my goal differently, my responsibilities differently. And that is, I need to be achieving my objective in a way, I repeat, I need to achieve my objectives in a way that helps others around me achieve their objectives as well. And like Sijin said, it's not about doing other people's work, but doing our work in a way that doesn't undermine the work of others. If at all, it's helping others do their work better. Now, if you look at this and we continue to only pay attention to capability and effort, meaning results, would that translate into better impact? Is there any correlation, but that we focus on capability and results, it translates into better impact? Actually, there's no correlation at all. But think about this. If we start paying attention to impact as the pivot, as the key element, what do you think will happen to capability and effort now? Is there a correlation now? Absolutely yes, right? So the more we pay attention to impact, capability and effort, meaning results, automatically start to improve. So from a leadership perspective, who's trying to drive engagement and turn around quiet quitting, what would be a strategic emphasis now? It needs to be impact. Okay, so keeping this in mind, let's look at a framework, right? We call it the 3A+ framework. And what this framework does is it helps individuals assess whether they are delivering their results, whether the kind of impact they're having on people around them, and their own continuous improvement. And all these three things together will allow us to neutralize disengagement or quiet quitting in a meaningful way. Now, let's look at the framework. Now, how do we assess capability? And what we are suggesting is a simple 3-to-1 rating can help us meaningfully assess capability with engagement and quiet quitting in mind. For example, 3 means this person has all the necessary capabilities to succeed in the role. 2 means with training, this person could be a 3. 1 means this person can't reasonably become a 3 in the role. There's a job misfit. So if I'm assessing myself to be a 1 in a particular role, that warrants a conversation with my manager to say, listen, I'm doing all this, but I'm fine with A, B, C, D, but E and F, I'm a 1. We need to talk about rescope. Because if I'm not addressing the ones, there will necessarily be disengagement, quiet quitting happening in my role, in my position. I will be a quiet quitter. Same thing for 2. If I'm assessing myself as a 2, right? Am I engaging my manager in sufficient conversations to develop myself to become a 3, right? And if I'm not doing that, is there a consequence to engagement levels, right? So what is the role I'm playing to help myself become a 3? Is there enough sufficient conversations happening with my manager, right, to make sure I'm moving toward a 3? And these are very, very critical from a capability perspective to strengthen engagement and to turn around quiet quitting. Now, the second component is impact. Now, the word impact is used in organization very closely with results. For example, hey, I double my sales, my impact on the company is fantastic. I delivered this fantastic project. The impact on the company was great. No, that's not how we are using the word impact when it comes to mindset. Here, we are referring to helpfulness to others. The manner in which I go about doing my job, is it causing problem for people around me? Or is it making it easier for people around me to do their work? A case in point, I'm supposed to make a submission by, so that I need to submit a report to say, Rohit by today so that he can take it and prepare his report for further submission. But you know what? I give it him at 5:30 in the evening. And he needs to submit tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Did I make his life easier or worse, right? Because now he has to work overtime. So that's not helpful, So the manner in which I go about doing my work, is it easier for people to do their work? Or am I, really straining them? So here we use an ABC rating. A means I have a positive impact on others. The manner in which I do my work, generally, most people find it easier to do their work. B means mixed impact. Half of you find it easier to do your work because of the way I do my work. The other half find it difficult to do your work because of the way I do my work. And C is negative impact. The way I do my work generally, I'm not alive. I'm not even considering the consequences of how I do my work to your work. And as you can see, right, if you just look at it and you relate it to engagement and quiet quitting, whenever I'm showing up B and C's for impact, there will definitely be quiet quitting. The disengagement levels will be high. So as an individual, am I mindful? Am I assessing the impact I'm having? And I'm having a strategy to make myself an A, because if I'm not, at 2 levels, I'm failing. Number 1, I am undermining the work of others, which is not my job. Number 2, and because I'm a B and C, my level of relationships with people around me are not going to be healthy. And that is going to be a contributing factor to quiet quitting and lower engagement. And the third level, right? Third component is actually effort. Here we are referring to results. You know, I have a KPI, I have a goal to achieve. And am I delivering my goals? You know, right? So if I am, it's a plus. If I'm not, it's a minus. But you can say, but Central, you know, I worked very hard. You know, I didn't get married because of the company. You know, I didn't have children. You know, I'm working late. I'm sacrificing my weekends. Well, that's of no consequence, right? Because nobody expected me to do that. The organization is inviting me to join me in a partnership for 8 to 10 hours a day, not the weekends. You know, and in that time that I'm committed to the organization, for which the organization is giving me a compensation, am I giving it the necessary diligence, focus, priority, strategy, execution, leading to results? You know, and if I can encourage that, what happens is innovation thrives, creativity thrives, because I'm now figuring out how to get the work done. The level of engagement, meaningfulness, purposefulness dramatically starts to increase. So this is what we call the 3A plus performance standard or a development framework. And in order to neutralize quiet quitting, increase engagement, there is a correlation between, you know, aiming and, you know, strategizing and being accountable to be a 3A plus employee and reducing quiet quitting and increasing engagement. There's a strong correlation. Now, so keeping that framework in mind, how can we leverage that framework to actually have conversations with our managers? You know, now that we have a framework for self-assessment, okay, which is this, right? The 3A plus framework, we can now leverage on this to have conversations. Now, in this development conversation, because we are promoting self-accountability, you know, so the three tenets of development conversations are these. Number one, the direct report is responsible to prepare for, schedule, and conduct the meeting. These meetings should happen at regular intervals. We cannot emphasize how important it is. Regular meetings. Number two, the direct report gives an accounting of their results and the impact of those results on others. They present their plan to improve their results and impact. And the third one, in the spirit of helpfulness, both the direct report and their manager take robust accountability for areas where there have been problems for other people, right? So these are the three principles that need to govern these development conversations. It is self-driven. I'm holding myself accountable. But if you think about the last point, it is not just a subordinate holding himself accountable, but the leader is also demonstrating the same level of accountability for their impact on the subordinate. Okay, so this is the first part. We need to redefine accountability if we're going to strengthen engagement and weaken the grip of quiet quitting. Now, the third one is clarify roles. Now, this is such an important part. And again, every time when we work with clients and we use a simple tool, there are so many ahas that happen. And there's so much relief in the people that are doing this and having conversations. It's a very simple tool. Just get people to list the roles as they know it. Ask them to rank order them according to the priority. Ask them to, identify how much time are they spending in a month in each of these roles, and then have a conversation with the manager to see whether they are aligned. Are they, prioritizing the right things and giving it the necessary time? Because when they start having these conversations, the dynamism, the dynamic nature of these conversations, which is never static, right? Allows better alignment. And this alignment is absolutely critical for better engagement and to weaken the grip of quiet quitting. So this is a third one. And the last one, is about recognition. Like I shared in the beginning, recognition, everybody understands it, knows it, but the biggest excuse people have is busyness, and we cannot overdo recognition. Recognition is so important, in an informal basis. Just the little things about, talking about, hey, that was a great job, and when people think about recognition, they don't realize there are two components to it. One is, let's say, Rohit did something well, and to just go to him personally and say, hey, Rohit, I thought that was fantastic. Just that that recognition to that individual, a conversation, just to appreciate a specific thing that Rohit did and just say, well done, thank you, right? And the other part of recognition, right, is to celebrate that good work Rohit did, right, with others around me. What is stopping me from going, let's say, to, somebody, for example, going to Jack or to Georgina or Grace, and saying, hey, do you know what Rohit did? I thought that was amazing, right? What about celebrating the good work of others with other people? Now, when people think of recognition, they're not fully paying attention to both components of recognition. It's not just a direct appreciation or acknowledgement, but it's also the celebration of that hard, amazing work done by somebody with the entire ecosystem. And both these things need to come together, to support better engagement and a turning around quiet quitting. So some questions to ponder here. Are leaders aware of the contributions and the good work of the employees? Are leaders actively acknowledging and appreciating the good work of the staff? And what about promotions, performance bonuses, performance appraisals? How are you managing them? Are there ways they can be tweaked and strengthened to better support recognition? So we started off, talking about, quiet quitting and how do we cultivate employee engagement. And it's really about creating a leveled up organization, and for that, we are talking about redefining accountability, having regular meaningful development conversations with our employees, clarify roles and recognition, right? So yeah, so I've come to the end of the formal presentation. Are there any questions you have? Maybe now is the time to actually look at some of the questions that have been, posted in the chat box. Rohit, shall we look at them?
Yep. So of course, thank you, Santil and Sijin, for your insights today. So while you guys are sharing, of course, there are many, many questions in the chat box. So I think this is the best time to address them.
So yeah, let's look at the first one, right? How do we address staff who are still not engaged at work, even if we have systems in place, Now, so let's go back to the 3A plus framework, right? So let's just go back to the 3A plus framework, right? And this will be a good way to think about it, So you've done everything, but people are still not engaged at work, And the question really is it a capability issue? Is it an impact issue? And is it a delivery of results issue, right? And because if you think about it, every employee who joined the organization actually committed to something, right? That's why they got a job. Let's just look at it. Rohit, let's look at it. Let's say you interviewed me for a job, and then what am I committing to in terms of my capability? Am I committing that I'll be a 1 or a 2 or a 3?
You're trying to definitely show that you are a 3 for the role that you're applying for.
Right. I'm either a 3 or I'm committing to becoming a 3 in a reasonable period of time. At 2 right now, I can become a 3, right? So I'm committing in many ways to be a 3, or in some cases a 2, right? Because the skill level may be too complex to gain in 3 months. And, I'm saying I'm a 2 right now, but I'm prepared, and so on. Yeah. Now, if you think about impact now, right? What am I committing to? Am I saying I'll be a C, I'll make people's life miserable, or, some of them will find it easy to work with me, others won't. What am I actually committing to when it comes to impact?
Definitely the A, right? You want to make sure.
Yeah, finish your sentence.
Yeah, to make sure that
sorry.
you're impacting the people around you in a positive way, basically.
That's right. So I am, however I'm selling myself, right? I'm saying I'll be a good team player. People around me will enjoy working with me, right? And I'll be having meaningful engagements. So I am committing to an aim. And in terms of results, what am I committing to? Am I saying I have a track record for delivering results, or don't trust me with the results? What exactly am I convincing you of?
Definitely the former, right? Just to make sure that you are able to deliver those promises and results.
Right. So as an individual, I'm committing to be a 3A plus, and an employer is looking for a 3A plus. And that is why we got into this, offer letter, and I'm not now on a job, right? So if a person is not engaged at work, so we can reference or, leverage on this framework to see how are they doing? Are they a 3A plus? And if they are not, are we giving them sufficient, meaningful development, opportunities, right? And if they still don't meet the standard, right, that the organization requires, then it requires tough conversations because the commitment they made and what they are exhibiting, there's a mismatch, right? If I were to use a vendor, contractor, vendor, parlance, right? The service level agreement has been breached, right? And we need to have a serious consequential conversation about it. Okay, so that's the first one. Now let's look at, Jasmine asked a question, from an employee's point of view, what if I've already tried my best to be impact focused, but my stakeholder bosses are gatekeeping information and not having genuine conversations with me regarding my KPI work performance? Now, this can happen, and it does happen sometimes. And one of the things, Jasmine, we'd invite you to look at is look at the relationships that you're having. What are you doing to? Sometimes it's not about logic anymore, Remember, it's about relational, right? The whole life is in relationship, and everything is relational. And what I would like to invite you to consider is the quality of relationships that you currently have with your bosses, for example, and what strategies might there be to strengthen those conversations, right? For example, Sijan earlier talked about trust in manager and all that. As an individual, as an employee, what can I do to strengthen those levels? Might be something to think about, right? Then we have Noor, Nazira. You said, how do we address and manage the mindset and perception of different generations toward the company and the job? Now, Noor, this is a very common question that gets asked, and it's very much what's happening is it's reaching some places has reached not a healthy level where we're starting to categorize people as Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Zs, millennials, and we're starting to label an entire bunch of people. But at the end, if you just actually go deeper, right, they're all in relationship. They all want to have a meaningful existence. They want to come to work and feel like they contributed something. So rather than put on a millennial or a generational lens, if we just go back to the foundations, the basics of what it means to be engaged, purpose, meaningfulness, right? And these kind of things, we can actually address a lot of problems systematically. Then we label it as a Gen Z issue and so on. And then we fall into a trap of labeling and weaponizing a generation, right? So my suggestion is if we can just go to the basics of what it means to engage people, we might find better solutions than look at it from a Gen Z lens. Having said that, right, the younger generations today, they are far more interested in meaning and purpose. Far more interested in that. And why? Because, a lot of their psychological basic needs are met. They have a house to live in, they have parents to support them, even if they are not doing well enough, a lot of them, so the basic needs seem to be met. So meaning and purpose is starting to feel more important for these people compared to previous generations. If there's one difference, a weightage, I would say meaning and purpose.
And as a millennial, I'd like to share some of the insights here as well. And I think, Cynthia, you made a very good point, right? The needs that we have is different. And if you're familiar with Maslow's theory, that you can say the Gen Z or the millennial, they're focused on the higher levels, how you self-actualization, like those self levels on the pyramid. But one of the things from an organizational perspective is also this: are we acknowledging that, or are we still expecting people to see job the same way that a few generations ago, the way they see them? Okay, because that's not going to work for you, and we're not going to turn the time back. The Gen Z or millennial is not going to go back and think, oh, if I lose this job, I got no food to eat, I got no place to live. Life is not going to turn back to the old times. So one of the things I think from a general organizational perspective is also to accept this is what it is. Those people, they want to find meanings. I've worked with millennials and Gen Zs who job hop most of the times. They change job every 2 or 3 years. I've also met people who stay in a job for 7, 8, 9 years. Okay? So it's not a generational issue, but rather about whether you're accepting it, that they're likely to change jobs, and then review the systems and the policies that you have in place to make sure the business is not put at risk when that happens. And at the same time, right, are we also having this, we talk about mindset, right, this open mindset of accepting who they are and what they want to explore. I read an article yesterday about this company that their policy for job hoppers is to lean in. And then they said, what we want to do is to keep in touch with them. And because, everyone explore different ways to create meaning and purpose for themselves. So we just keep in touch with them. And maybe at a later stage, they will find actually working with us is more meaningful. And then we will open our arms and welcome them back. So there are new things companies can also start doing and thinking rather than being fixated. You have to see the job in a certain way as the older generation did. Right? So just my 2 cents.
Great. Thanks for that insight, Sijin. Now let's go down the list. The next one, George shared, how can I hold myself accountable for my impact on others' performance when they are not making their objectives clear to me? I guess it is rather common in organizations that workers are not really aware of what their colleagues are trying to achieve. Now, again, right, if I am supposed to be responsible for my impact, then it is incumbent on me to actively engage these stakeholders that I need to work with, build a relationship with them, make them comfortable with me, become a trusted partner with them so that there's more open sharing. It's not rocket science, right? A lot of it comes down to, am I showing up with the right mindset? Do I have a good enough relationship? Does the other party feels that, I'm interested in their success? Now, these kind of basic norms, right, will help the relationship and will help the opening up so that more conversations can happen. Next one, Jack shared, how should I approach someone who's not giving their best but still believes that they have already given all from their own perspective? Now, this is a very interesting question, Jack. People who are not giving it their best often feel that they are giving it their best. It's a paradox, right? People who are not giving it their best often feel that they have given it their best. And if you actually help these people, we need to go one level deeper and see with what mindset they are approaching their life and their work. Often the limits to what they feel is the limit to how much they can do. The limit is actually determined often by the inward mindset, right? So if I show up with an inward mindset, a self-focus orientation, right, the limits are very clear to me and I'm constantly justifying that I've done everything I can. And to unlock further potential, we need to help people see a different mindset, help people operate with a different mindset. And when they get into an impact focus orientation, suddenly the walls that they built, the ceiling that they thought they have reached starts to crumble. There's no more feeling now, So to help people see differently, that they are not anywhere near their limits, it requires a fundamental shift in mindset because the inward mindset itself creates a seal. Okay. Now, let's try the next one. Ulfa, you shared, is job crafting will help to this framework? If so, what HR people can do to monitor and evaluate this? Yes, job crafting, right? For example, the 3A plus framework informs us of a different way to define our jobs, job crafting. For example, right? Let's say my job is, let's say I have a responsibility. My responsibility is to deliver sales, deliver $2 million in sales, right? That is my job. I'm in sales. My goal is to deliver $2 million in sales. Now, how do we employ the 3A plus framework to help people redefine their roles, right? For example, now, because impact is a critical component, I can now say deliver $2 million in sales in a way that helps the, the supply team, the marketing team achieve their goals, So what I'm doing is I'm now embedding, codifying impact into the way I define my goals. So absolutely right, job crafting is going to be a very big area that gets influenced by the 3A plus. So the answer is yes. And that is some of the work that we do when we are supporting clients, HR organizations or OD, in redesigning their work so that it is consistent with the mindset they're aspiring for. Now let's go to the next one. Earn, Yap, Shed. How can we equip leaders to better prevent quiet quitting in their teams? Earn, great question. I think the first thing is to empower leaders to understand mindset, provide a common language for them to navigate the challenges they're facing. For example, in this case, quiet quitting or poor engagement, right? They need a new language to look at the same problems differently with a mindset lens. Now, having given them the mindset language, and then we can help them then personally, right? Redefine how they need to be looking at their jobs, keeping in mind impact. Right? With that frame, if they look at this problem, it will feel very different. And the solutions that they're able to think about will also be very refreshing. Now, Rosie, you talked about how do we address or manage bosses who operate in a different way? Bosses who lack communication, micromanage, lack of transparency, and so on. Again, some bosses are just hard nuts. They will never change, right? But, if you apply the 80-20 rule, you might have 20% like that who are just stuck in their ways. And, you have to make tough choices about your own career and all that. But 80%, right, they are amenable to change. And there are things as a subordinate that we can do, right? Working on our mindset, building relationships. We are talking about role clarification, delivering our results, keeping in mind impact, working in a level 3 way. There are many things, and there are other things we can do to actually soften the stiffness that sometimes leaders exhibit so that we can better align with the managers. So I wouldn't say there's no hope, and the world is not perfect, but 80% of the people, managers, right, are amenable to making themselves a better leader for you by some of the efforts you take. Now,
I would like to add a little bit. I received
Mhm,
a private message about boss's situation as well.
mhm.
I remember the employee A and B that were used to, for example. So the question is, what if A is causing a negative impact because he cannot do his job? So the boss actually give the work to B. Then how do we analyze this situation? I think quite similar to what Rosie is asking. Right? So, and I would, apart from what Cynthia just said, then another thing is, in that situation, instead of thinking about how I can manage my boss, a better question to ask is, how can I manage myself? When my boss is micromanaging, my boss is giving me other people's jobs. How can I respond to my boss in a helpful way that I'm taking care of myself and I'm also taking care of the impact that I have on other people? And as much as possible, also invite, send this invitation to the boss and say, hey, there is a way to see things differently. Okay. That might be a better approach to think, because if all the energy is focused on changing other people and managing other people, it can be very exhausting for us. But if we refocus on how we can manage ourselves and find peace, that might be a more healthy approach.
Great questions, and we're glad that some of you are finding it helpful. Now, just to start, if you have no other questions, right, just to close this discussion, right, and slowly start to wind down. Sorry, let me just go back to the last one, right? So the summary is this, right? As an individual, as a professional, a leader in your organization, we, focus on creating a leveled up organization, thereby, strengthening engagement and turning around quiet quitting. And these are the 4 areas, right? Redefine accountability and so on. Now, just a quick introduction to Arbinger. Arbinger is a training and consulting firm, and we focus on 3 areas to support organizations. One is leadership development. The other one is performance optimization at every level of the organization. And the third one is to actually foster belonging. If you're interested in any of these things, do reach out to us. we will just connect with you via email. Finally, right, the next steps, we do have a workshop coming up, leading for performance and engagement by developing and implementing an outward mindset. In Singapore, it is on the 1st and 2nd of April, and in Kuala Lumpur, it's on the 13th and 14th of May. We do have other dates in the year. You can just check our website out and you can see the other dates. You can actually reach out to us to customize a solution for your organization, or you can actually elevate employee experience by actually having a workshop for a team, your own team, right? And do reach out to our companies, okay? Yeah. Are there any questions you have? You can just unmute and ask the question. You can have a discussion. Okay, if not, over to you, Rohit.
All right. So thank you so much, Senthil and Sachin, for sharing your valuable insights. And thank you so much to all the participants for taking the time out today to share your experiences with us as well. I hope you've gained some valuable knowledge in this webinar. And so, of course, if you have any questions, you can please feel free to contact us in the email that I've just shared, clientrelations@arbingerc.com. And we will get back to you also in regards to the link of this webinar so you can get a refresher on the slides as well. So thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in our future programs in April, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.